Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're tuning in to the Stronger Futures Project. And I'm your host, Stanley Dietrich with 360 Life Without Limits. And today I am joined with my co host, Tammy Cho. And I just love having Tammy on, her energy, her insights, her personal experience. And today's episode is about when life changes and when it takes us by surprise, when we are in this mode and we're looking for those gardens and we're looking for the beauty in life. And then all of a sudden, something happens, something changes. And there are opportunities that we have throughout our life, and we will get them. Nobody is exempt. That's the beauty of this. Nobody is exempt. So, knowing that, that also gives us the assurance that somebody else has already gone through what we may be experiencing right now or that we're going to experience. And even before our broadcast this morning here, we shared just one little clip about the philosophy and how things philosophically they can sound okay, but then when we get into the heat of the moment or the thick of it, it's totally different. And we're learning again something new and growing and stretching, and that creates these defining moments. So welcome, Tammy. I'm glad to have you here, excited about our conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me here again, Stanley. Like I'm enjoying our weekly chats.
Yes.
Yeah, like I mean, well, let me just start by a little bit about me in case someone here hasn't met me before. It's my name is Tammy Cho. I'm the CEO of Pats the Heart. I was a former patient care leader turned now international bestselling author and speaker, as well as a face and body analysis expert and authentic energy leadership coach. And so I essentially help someone move from this hustle to flow without sacrificing the results, but also their authentic self. And if anything, I know with this is that change is an important ingredient of growth transformation. And if anything, right, Stanley, it's really change is the only thing that we could actually rely on.
That's right.
And so we must learn to really partner and have develop a different relationship with change. So as we dive into this, right? I'm curious, Stanley, what inspired you to have this topic? What was brewing within you that this like topic came up? I'm just curious.
Well, I want to say over the last 5 years, really, my whole mindset has shifted, and it has been drawn more to the components of our living, our experience, our brain, our physical experience, our emotional experience, our social experience, and our biological, what all these elements, they're all components of the body, and how we can't separate one from the other because they're so uniquely intertwined. And how when we're tapping into that, now we begin to go, what else am I missing? How come nobody told me this before, with all the knowledge that's out there? And our conversations um, have grown and transpired and also transformed the understanding and the ideas that we've developed, and especially in the work that you do and our connecting links. So the experience that you had with your daughter at a moment, and here you were in the healthcare world, and yet your care was being minimized, or it was not being attended to. And it's in those moments that define us and create our future, or they can create our demise if we don't act on it. And I see this over and over and over. And I'm working with clients that are, at that close to retirement age. And now they're asking the question, okay, now what? I've got this big now what ahead of me. or somebody that's in their 40s and they've been an athlete and now they are driven with pain and they're going, is this what it's all about? And working with me, I'm able to help them navigate through that, transfer that, eliminate that pain. And, you know, that was one of the key things that I took from our session was it's becoming aware of what I wasn't aware of and then demystifying it. So I'll stop right there because I know that that was a lot, but that's what's really made me go into this. And see, I said I was going to stop, but I kept going. But that's where my passion is. It's like I want to help as many people before I leave this planet to experience an abundance that they were designed and created to experience. And you know, I want to learn from other people's mistakes. Why? Because I don't want to make them all myself. There's too many to make. So why not learn from somebody else's, right? Okay, now I'm done.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that was a lot, but I'll I'm gonna just jump into something here, like, because it's very true with what you're talking about. Pain in our body. Oftentimes, it's one of those signals that change is needed. In many ways, right, Stanley? And often we start life being told there's this linear path. Find a job, get a business. Have family, have kids. Whatever that is, right? We're all told it's so linear, yet it's not like that. And so we're all out there
Right.
figuring it out. And yeah, and it's like change is one of those things that are, yeah, it's if you're not feeling some pain on the journey,
Right.
you're probably not doing it right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's so part of the journey, and it's so important not to put a cover over it and really speak about it, which we're diving in today. And so coming back to Stanley, what you're talking about, like for myself, I came from a place where I experienced burnout, and I was realizing how much disconnection I had with my own daughter. And obviously when we feel pain, we know to take our hand off the stove. But literally for me, like when my daughter was lying there on one of those baby Einstein mats, intentionally hitting one of those hanging, dangling toys for the very first time, I literally couldn't feel it. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like totally disconnected to it, to the fact, this joy of my own daughter having this experience for the first time. In fact, if it wasn't for this community nurse that was doing follow-up visits with me postpartum and pointed that out to me, I wouldn't have known how disconnected I was. And Stanley, this is what I notice in a lot of clients I work with, right? Is that they are in a space that they've gotten used to having things a certain way, setting a goal and pushing and doing to accomplish it, right?
Right.
And things may come up that um, tell us that something's not working. Yet, their relationship with change is one of pushing through. And so that was very much me, right? I was very much like, being that caregiver, like giving so much of myself, being the high achiever that was me, and really wanting to help and care with the best intentions. Yet, yeah, I was to the extent that I just burned out and I was wheeled off to emergency in front of everyone, right? And so, yeah, there's this place here, or relating with how we handle change. And it's like sometimes we're on that and we're not, like my journey of not necessarily feeling, allowing ourselves to feel the pain. Yes, we feel the pain from the external circumstances that
Right.
flow to us. And we realize that, oh, something's not working. That in itself stimulates something within us, that something is not working. And what I notice as a trap for a lot of people I see is that they're not actually letting themselves be with the emotions and learn how to process through the pain. In fact, I will say that this is one of the things that, if you don't know how to actually be with your emotions, then the alternative is that you either numb it out, you um, try to cover up with, maybe some form of addiction, whether that's alcohol or Netflix,
Right.
um, or whatever the sense that is. Sometimes it's like from staying positive through it all. And there's a time and place for all those things. It's really what the intention behind it is, right, Stanley?
Exactly. Yeah. The the changes and the defining moments in life that really cause us to wake up, a lot of times it can be a life and death situation. And I think this is, we pay attention to the yellow light when we're going through an intersection. We make a decision whether to hit the brakes or hit the gas. And um, but in our own personal experience, we don't have that yellow light. We have it, but we don't pay attention to it. It's not a visual, it's not a physical yellow light. It's a psychological yellow light. It's that raise in your heart pressure, or it's that, hey, I forgot the name of the person that I'm talking to, and I've been friends with them for years. It's those moments that are the yellow lights that we obviously divert it to say, well, I had so many things on my mind. I just couldn't remember. I got tongue tied.
Hmm.
And these are the signs, these are the indicators that are really those yellow lights that we just push off to the side until, like you say, we wake up and we've got to make a decision. And it's a decision that we've got to make right now. But it's having those people in our life, those mentors, coaches, and influencers that say, hey, there's a better way. And it's also being able to ask for help in those moments. And that's where the defining moments and the reality of what our process allows to go forward.
Yeah, and it's the beauty of, what our body highlights to us, right? Really communicating that, like when we don't ignore ourselves and ignore the yellow lights, too often, that's when it does show up in the body. And sometimes it's pain, and sometimes it's like illness, sometimes it's a symptom that's going on, whether that's like chronic, colds or something to that effect, right? These are and this is not that common to think about it in this way, just because I'm a face and body analysis expert. It shows up quite a bit. Every obstacle in life, it shows up as a body symptom of some sort,
Mhm.
whether that's a posture change, or whether that's a symptom that could be itchiness of rashes, things like this. And it's really speaking to us. And so in reality, I mean, when you speak about mentoring and coaching, I think that using our own body as this map is a really powerful way of, first of all, feeling empowered on our path to actually be connecting to our body as a, really a sacred container versus just something that moves us to A to B. And it's like being able to work with someone like myself or Stanley that, is able to sort of support our body into that alignment, so to speak, right?
Right.
And recognizing that when changes happen, it affects how we hold ourselves. And to recognize that, when we're out of alignment in our body, this is also manifesting in our life and vice versa. And so, yeah, there's so much empowerment to, yes, asking for help, being vulnerable, feeling the emotions of, yeah, things are not working. I gotta like just meet myself here face to face. And it's like, it's not working. I need to ask for help. And there's vulnerability in that too, and so yeah, it's just so powerful when we allow ourselves to be real with ourselves and just to meet ourselves where we're at, and yeah, be radically honest, because that's one of the deepest forms of self-care, I would say.
Yeah. Now let me ask you, when before you got involved with what you're doing and before you had the experience that you had with your daughter and that emotional disconnect,
Mhm.
did you at any earlier stage or earlier age in your life kind of have this draw to what you're doing now, but weren't able to articulate it or to really see it or know that it was even available?
Yeah, I mean, I would say because leading up to that point, right? There's always the story behind the story. And for myself, yeah, I burned out. I knew I was burning out at that time, right? But I understood intellectually, but because I wasn't necessarily allowing myself to feel it, it was like entirely feeling, I was feeling pain all over my body. I knew I couldn't emotionally let go, and the emotions get stuck in the body, right? But
Right.
prior to that, right, like it was, yeah, I came from a family where my mom had left me when I was 20 days old. So that definitely stimulated a lot of things of my worthiness. Like I'm not deserving of love. Like all these things came up. I was left to an abusive father. And so yeah, definitely trauma played out in my life and it affected how I saw myself, what I felt I was worth, all these things. And it doesn't have to be something big and dramatic, right? It could
Right.
be something as simple as being put in charge of the family. You had to put your own needs aside and take care of all the siblings. It could be as simple as your mother telling you that you gotta like move your hair out of your face a certain way consistently, and it didn't make you feel good. And it was like a chronic repetition of something, or something like your teacher told you or said to you, right, that imprinted on you. And these are the things, right, that imprint on us inside our bodies, right? And it's like, this is when I do body readings, like someone's emotional history is really painted, and how our structure, the shape, the size, of our body is created to reflect that. And so when we talk about change and pain and things like that, and what I believe, it's not looking at what we're thinking and what our body is saying, or our emotions are saying. It's kind of bringing it all together. And this is the piece that we don't really speak about, that brings a lot of, has brought a lot of calm for me in the changes, is
Mhm.
really being that having that connection with our soul. Because what I've noticed and found, and what has supported me on my path of seeing life in a whole different light, is that
Mhm.
I feel that my soul had chosen the experiences coming into this lifetime, so to speak. And the pain, the changes, is actually a way of something bigger, whether you want to call that God, spirit, universe, energy, to really highlight that it's time for a realignment. It's time to address this pain that you've stuffed under the carpet somewhere,
Right.
that you haven't addressed. And what I see time and time again and supporting my clients is that when they, I hold space for them to process through the deeper emotions that often, we're human. We don't like to turn towards what feels negative generally. But when we stand in self leadership of our life, Stanley, right? It's so important to learn how to navigate the dark and the light, the negative and the positive, because like we restrict how much joy we can experience in these changes when we're only seeing or feeling a certain aspect of it, right? And so, yeah, I'll stop there because I feel like I said a lot there.
Yeah,
um,
and I love that. And as you're talking, and you're talking about sweeping things under the carpet, I'm going to share a real funny, but it wasn't funny at the time, story.
okay.
And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because as we put those things under the carpet, is we think that if they're out of sight, they're out of mind, and they're not going to affect us anymore. And when I was a little kid, we were really poor, and we had my mom. She knew how to make smashed food, like squash and zucchini and that kind of stuff, and it was fried, and it was just yucky food. Now I love squash and I love zucchini now, but for a long time I didn't want to eat anything that was like smashed, unless it was
Mm,
a potato. And I can't recall. I want to say I was maybe 8 years old, maybe nine. Anyway, my mom made this food, and it was just I just was not going to eat this. And so she would eat, and she would make us sit at the table wherever we were sitting until whatever she put on our plate was done. But that's all we had, was this squashy, nasty food. And so she'd eat and she'd go and lay on the couch. Well, I wasn't going to eat this food, and I knew that I couldn't throw it in the trash. Now, they didn't have garbage disposals in the little dump of an apartment that I lived in. So my not so intelligent thinking was, I'm just going to physically put it under the throw rug. And then I'm going to rinse my plate off. And a couple days later, this thing starts to smell. Now,
Mhm.
I thought that I had died and come back after I got my beating. But
Oh,
this is what we do in life is that sometimes we hide these things, and it can be an experience, it can be an emotion, it can be something that we think that we're the only one that's going through it. And so we sweep it under the for me, it was a physical carpet, and it
yeah.
wasn't a pretty thing.
Yeah.
Let me preface to any listener that's now listening: don't do that. Okay.
Yeah. Well, in your own metaphorical way.
Yes, yes, but it is. You know, many things have created my transformation in my life, and one of them spiritually was when we lost a full-term baby, and burying him and burying that dream and burying that child, and you wait for that moment,
Mm,
and now you take what you inspire to grow and develop and nurture. And this can be an adventure as well, it could be a job, it can be an opportunity, but this was a life. And burying that child created a whole dynamic of my life, and it was a pain that most people don't know how to navigate, because we don't talk about those things, and we suppress them, we keep them inside. And some of the nice things that people really meant by their saying, but it really did no nurturing, was, you're young, you can have another one. Well, that doesn't solve it. So if you lost a business, you're young, you can start another one. You got divorced, you married the wrong person, you're young, you can get another one. And those thoughts and those ideas that upend us. You lose a kidney, now you've only got one. Well, be grateful that you've got one. Maybe you can get another one. Well, that doesn't work. And these things, as we navigate them, and then we go, what could I have done to prevent that? Now, this is where the transformation, the defining moment comes in. And now I began to meet other people that had lost a child. Now I began to meet other people that had gone through these similar experiences. And so when when I say I can sympathize, I will not understand exactly what you're going through. Now I connect with people. And
mm,
and it's in that defining moment that made me become the person that I am today. And early on in my childhood, I remember vividly, before the age of 8, I said, there has to be a better way. I watched this. We moved from California, Garden Grove, California, the richest county in California, to a dump where we were left and abandoned by my mom's second husband. And I didn't want anybody else to experience that. And this is why I do what I do. And this is what I hear in your story, and I think this is one of the reasons why you and I connect on such a spiritual, emotional level, is that there are connecting links that help to promote each other, support each other, to encourage one another. And I think this is where, when we find those people, when we find those coaches, those mentors, those people that can not just inspire us, but help us to pick up the pieces, because we're not broken, but the pieces may be broken. We're not broken, but the pieces to our journey may be broken or just in a disarray. And it's learning how to bring those back together.
yeah. And Stanley, I just like feel so much for that story you just shared, because I've never actually heard that share from you. And I just, as a mom, I just feel so much like empathy, and I just want to honor that. And I just, yeah, I just want also want to the learnings that you've learned from it. And I feel like there's a place here when we talk about this change, Stanley, whether you, me, all of us who are listening, is that really not neglect that there's transformation in the change, in the sense of processing through the grieving aspect, like whatever loss of a job, loss of self, loss of a baby, to not neglect like the bereavement process, because
Hmm.
it's actually when we skip over these steps of, you know, grieving, feeling the anger, like going into depression and then moving into acceptance.
Hmm.
When we do not allow ourselves to slow down to be with this process, it that's what happens. Things get, trapped within us. It starts to paint our lens for all the future things that we choose to set our eyes for, to take action, to create in our lives. And whether that's trauma, whether that's the losses along life, it's
Hmm.
all pointing us back to ourselves. Because when we create the space for ourselves, this creates the intimacy, and the intimacy with ourselves creates the confidence. And guess what? When we receive ourselves deeply, the flow of life flows again. It doesn't feel like we're just doing. It feels like we could feel life and we're being and living, and actually allowing joy and happiness and this fulfillment to come into our hearts. And so I just really want to speak to this piece, because often we think about it at a point of death, yet it's so crucial that this is part of the journey of our transformation through the changes that we navigate through.
Yeah.
So just want to speak to that.
Yeah. And I I wouldn't not want that to happen to anyone, but
Mhm.
I know that through that, God used me in a way that he turned what was meant for evil and he turned it for good. And because of that, I went on this spiritual journey, this seeking. And he says, if you seek me, you will find me. And it's when we seek something with all of our heart and we find out, why did I lose the job? Why did I lose the relationship? Why did I lose the opportunity? Did we really lose something, or did we coercively be brought into our future destiny? And I say coercively in a manner that it is how do I say it? I'll find it. But the coercive is not a negative, it is a positive. It's just bringing, they say you give anybody money and they'll only become more of what they already were. If you take that money away from them, they're still that same person, but you give them money, they become more of what they were. So if they were good hearted, they become even greater hearted because they have now the resources to do so. If they were evil intent, that money will only make them more evil because they will only see the evil things that they can do with it. They won't see the good that they can do with it. So it just magnifies what we already are. And so I think our experiences also can give us that magnification. And sometimes I think that we're also drawn to tap back into our original design, who we really are. And sometimes it takes losing what you think everything is so that you can gain so much more. And I mean, that for me and throughout my life and why I do what I do is one of those, one of those reasons.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true. It's like, whatever money, the incident, whatever we're looking at, it's really just energy. It's what
Right.
we apply to it, who we are as a person, that really matters in the creation of it, and it's like navigating through change. It's learning to see the change and the upsets as that gift, and our literally our happiness is a function of our ability to relate to it in a way and to really create with it. What can I create with it? What is meant to come through, and feel the emotions of it, like I said, right? Allow yourself to grieve and, move through, feeling depressed and down and to acceptance, right? But then, like, allowing yourself to like open up to what it's meant to show you, right, on your path. And this is this is like when the better we are at doing this, the more happier you will be. Um, the more you're able to rise in your vibration and not, cycling into like another way of seeing things that keeps you trapped in a certain energy. And so it's so important to really step into our self leadership in this and to really lead our energy in this way, right? So, so yeah, like I'm curious, is there any stones that we have left unturned here around change?
Yeah. I want to ask, I know in what I do posturally, but as you work with leaders and CEOs and people that are in high caliber or high energy requiring positions, as you uncover these things and they discover the root cause, how is that awakening for them, and how have you seen that become a freeing experience?
Um, yeah, I often look at these deeper, painful experiences as really receiving ourselves. Because whatever it is, just take example of, you know, um, us feeling like, we were maybe abused or something to some degree. And there's um, a place within us that felt that, we weren't able to maybe stand up for ourselves, um, that there was like actually a misunderstanding, but they didn't feel like ability to speak up for ourselves. And when I support someone in the exact, inner journey of their emotional journey in that moment, to help them actually receive that younger part of themselves and to let in the voice, like to me, this navigation into the space of receiving self, as I like to call it, when we heal, like one of those moving through into like maybe anger to acceptance in that process, even happens at this process, even when that young part of us doesn't feel like it's she or he is present in the moment. When
Mhm.
we allow ourselves to receive ourselves, what I have witnessed is someone who is on, the verge of burnout and feeling like they're not really showing up as their full self expressed in the leadership position that they're having, the client flow. It's like all of that opened up for her. She started to release energetic weight,
Mhm.
something that she's been working on for a while.
Mhm.
She started to have more flow in her business opportunities, speaking opportunities, visibility opportunities, speaking up for herself opportunities started flowing in. Client flow, having more discovery calls and landing clients with more ease. As she was able to set boundaries way like with more ease. It's not like she didn't know what to do,
Right.
but the fact that she allowed herself to receive herself in this way, it opened up, I guess, an energy block, so to speak, that she was able to start setting boundaries and see her worth. Because in that moment, at a younger age, she was using her gifts. But because of this whole incident, it was closed down. And so the
Right.
power of going within and having, someone trained to hold space for yourself to go to the places we turn away from, so much can unravel, and it affects not just one area of your life, it affects all these areas of your life because energy is not linear.
Right.
Energy works on different parts of our life. And things that we've been, setting goals and trying to like get things done with strategy, starts to work a lot with a lot more ease and flow.
Mhm.
And so it's, I mean, it's one of these things, Stanley, it's like sometimes we could just get stuck on the treadmill of doing, doing, doing. And yes, you could get results that way, but
Right.
often at the expense of sacrificing yourself, burnout, exhaustion, then eats away at our worthiness. We may not see it like that, but that's exactly why I see in my clients. And so I hope that, paints a picture, Stanley, of the importance of learning how to navigate this change, and it doesn't matter if someone is a high level leader or someone who's starting on the journey. The process is different because we're all human.
Right.
We have emotional body, we all are made of energy, so yeah, I hope that really speaks to who it needs to speak to.
Yeah. I was working with a client the other day, and one of the things that he said was, I forgot what it was like to feel the pain.
Mhm.
And he said, he said, I'm aware of it right now, so I don't want to lose that. He said that knowing that it's so easy to take for granted what feeling good feels like.
Mm.
And it was just amazing. And we were doing, he had some limitations in parts of his body. And in our session, what I do is I want to go for that root cause. I want to go for, like you do, you go for that root cause and know what that underlying root is so that we can pull it out of the ground, get it out, not leave any remnant, and then flourish. And we began to work a totally different part of the body. And he's questioned, what does this have to do with this? And trust the process, and I'll show you. And so we're doing this, and he does the exercise, and then he doesn't have the pain. And he's like, how does that work? And I said, because everything is connected. So, what has brought us on this journey, what has brought us in our craft, our art, is that all the things work together. The what we perceived as bad
Mhm.
things as well as the good things. If we only had the good things that happened to us, we wouldn't be this full person that we are. I believe it is the elements. It's being in the mud. It's having the manure put on us, the fertilizer. It's having the winds blow against us and create our strength. It's going against the flow to become stronger and resilient. And doing this on your own, it's so easy to become blinded. And this is where I see that, so many people, they go through this process of life and they try to do it on their own, and they think that this is just a normal pattern, that they're supposed to be broken down at 50, that all the injuries are supposed to be adding up, and this is the way that it's supposed to be, but it's not. There's a better way. Those are just elements. Now let's bring them together and create the ultimate outcome of those experiences, good, bad, indifferent. When things went our way, when things didn't go our way, they were actually working for us, not against us.
Yes, it's like it's so interesting how our work is intertwined in this way, and we talked
Yeah,
about like really doing some sort of case study, maybe like where you're supporting someone in this lower part of the body that affects the shoulder, or like
exactly.
the way you position your thumb and how it's related to your neck,
Right.
and how like our thumb has a lot to do with our internal will, and it's like when we are putting intention on it and adding it to our expression in the neck, right? To make these connections on what they actually mean at a maybe psychosomatic level, and maybe we could play around bringing the soul pieces in too. So anyway, I just love this aspect of how our body, Stanley, right? Like how you painted it is a direct reflection of how connected we are actually within ourselves. It's really highlighting, it's like a blueprint of asking us to come deeper in within ourselves. And so anyway, I know we really align to these kind of pieces. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, as we bring this to this full circle, what is your what is your recommendation? How would you share with other people, number one, how they can get a hold of you, and also the probabilities, not just the possibilities, that are readily available when people do this work.
yeah, like if you're wanting to reach out to me, you could definitely direct message me on the platform that you're hearing this through. You could reach out to me at Tammy, Tammy at Path to the Heart, like it's spelled underneath the bottom here. Um, what feeling called to sort of leave here, Stanley, is very much um, just because of we're on the topic of change. It's for just because I work with the energy realm and there's something sort of big we're shifting into leading up in the next couple of years. And I just wanted to speak to that a little bit in the sense of this is kind of like having the glasses on that are red colored and it's filtered in our whole experience.
Right.
So very much the last 400 years, our life has been filtered through um, what's called the gates of like planning, very much the details, the structures, very much big corporations and you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and very much a logical structures. And we're actually navigating into energetic wise, we're actually shifting as humanity into their next, hundreds of years. And it's into this energetic shift change of more developing more presence,
Mhm.
lot less logical, much more developing more intimacy with ourselves and developing more inner empowerment and abundance. Like these are actually the keynotes, as if you will, in something called human design.
Mhm.
And we're already seeing all of this happening. So when we're talking about changes, I just want to like highlight that. And I wanted to offer, as I just launched my podcast called Authentic Leaders Rising Podcast, I speak about this very in depth. And if we are wanting to be on top of the change, to really see how this is going to be filtered in our experience as individuals, but also maybe how we highlight this in our business with
Mhm.
how we may see or do things differently, knowing the shift, because we're not just gonna, it's gonna arrive and it's gonna shift suddenly, right? It's gonna come, it's slowly happening already. We're already seeing the value placed on the individual and humanity versus the bigger corporations. That shift, we're feeling the shaking up through COVID, through all these things that have happened.
Right.
And so I just wanted to speak to that and leave that there, and also put out the invitation that if that draws you, and this is something that I speak about, and I'd be happy to share it in the notes below if someone wants to connect to that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's being authentically authentic. And I think the word authentic has been so overused and not understood. And
Yes.
authenticity with integrity is the key. And when we're authentic with ourself and integrous with ourself, that's where we can maybe pull back the armor and allow other people to see, and not just vomiting our stuff on people, not looking, to just create sympathy, but to create a path to the heart. I'll steal that line right now, but it's getting back to our heart, and it's getting back to the path, and knowing that the path may be the path that we create. It has not been walked on before. It is the path of of least travels. And as we continue to walk that path, and as we walk our own path, and then we invite other people to join us, this is where I believe the collaboration of the heart grows, because it is about knowing thyself. Because if
Mhm.
knowledge were power, we'd all be rich, happy, and healthy, because there's so much stuff that's out there. It's the application of that. It's knowing thyself. It's how do I navigate through my own what's happened, and how do I transfer that into this defining moment, so to speak, and and not wait for the doctor report or the phone call that says, hey, this is what you have. You have
Mhm.
24 hours to make a decision. Being proactive and taking those steps and say, maybe that wouldn't happen to me, but here's what I'm going to do to prevent me from being in that situation, and do that early on. And how do you do that? You do that through the help of mentors and coaches like myself and yourself, as we help other people navigate what we've experienced, correlate that, and there's some similarities, but there's relevant applications that can be applied across the board.
Yes, beautifully said, Stanley. And so yeah, it's so true. It starts with us. It starts with developing that deep integrity, that radical honesty, that authenticity with ourselves, and very much why I created the Lead Your Authenticity Face Analysis video series.
Mhm.
Very much about showing you where you are playing out in your self leadership and how aligned you are in your inner and outer world, because it starts with us, and we choose to be the leader of our life and affect those changes, starting with our bodies. And so, yeah, please, subscribe, like, share. If you're liking these conversations with me and Stanley, yeah, I love to connect with all of you. Stanley and I will continue putting out more things together. And if there's something that you want to listen to, from our conversation specifically, please leave it in the comments, direct message Stanley, or myself. We will chat, and we're here to serve you on your journey. And so I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I would also encourage, is that anyone listening to this, if you don't want to put a public comment into the full chat, reach out to each one of us and send us a message to connect, and then share in a direct message of what it is that you'd like to know more about. You want to stay anonymous, leave that in a direct message, and we'll address that. We'll cover that topic. And this way the information and the understanding can get out, and nobody has to know, because it could be private. So I believe that all my client relationships are sacred, and I rarely, unless I have permission, will share a direct name. I'll usually change the name. What was it, Adam 12? The names have been changed to protect the innocence of now that's dating myself. So anyway, so I just want to put that out there and encourage our listeners to do so. So that is our show, and we're so grateful for those of you that are listening and watching, and we look to support you in the future as well. So until the next time,